Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Alston, and it is once again my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am excited, especially excited today in 2019 for not only having the BMWOC, but we're in our fourth season going in, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have more than 50 participants that is on this platform, and one of them is up for interview today, who is one of our corporate sponsors, Awakening to Love, and I can't wait to talk to him about his organization and what he's out there doing to inspire love across the nation. And you know what? You got to be on the BMWOC. And if you didn't know what we were all about, our organization helps people connect from all over the world and share their industry information, their business information, to encourage you to make life decisions and to elevate what you're trying to do when it comes to your career or your business. So make sure that you are visiting all of the pages and checking out all of the podcasts and participants that is going to be here this year. Make sure that you're taking notes, that you're reaching out to them. And most of all, please patron the business, buy a book, and book someone to speak, because these folks are amazing. Now, before we get started, which I can't wait to get started, I have to take a minute to thank our corporate sponsors, who are My Financial Home, Evangelism Radio, JNF Enterprises, Sears Consulting, Autism Families Rock, Awakening to Love, Eli Natoli, Kimberly McLemore, True Synergy, and Platinum Financial Services, along with all of our other participants who's hoping to make this season a success. So today we have James A. Valentine. Just so ironic, his last name is Valentine, who is the owner of Awakening to Love. He is a manifest coach, speaker, and best-selling author. He has a background in Christian ministry and is certified in hypnotherapy and neuro-linguistic programming. He has over 25 years of specialized experience in helping people pull back the veil of their life, inspiring them to see life from more of an empowerment perspective. And that perspective is what helps them use everything that shows up in their life to create the life that they want. And so we're going to continue to read his bio, but more importantly, we're going to bring on James Valentines. James, how you doing?
I am doing great, and thank you for the introduction. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. So I am excited. Thank you so much for being a corporate sponsor and supporting us to be part of the movement to support small businesses and authors. And we so appreciate you being on this platform.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. So let's introduce yourself and where you're from, where you grew up, and what led you to this road that you're on for Awakening to Love.
Absolutely. I am James Valentine. I do three things. I help people become magnetic, I help create memorable experiences, and I help people live boldly by being able to manifest the love they want, the wholeness they want, and the life that they want. I grew up in Washington, D.C., grew up in an environment where all you saw was poverty. All you saw was a dream and but the reality of what you saw was just poverty, was just lack, was just limitations. And so I grew up with that kind of mindset that even as great things begin to happen, being ingrained with that type of mindset that okay, no matter how good things get, they always, what felt familiar to me, what felt right to me was limitation. I also grew up with a mother who, in my eyes as a young child, was my hero. But at the same time, my mother was dealing with her own stuff. And so she was emotionally and mentally unavailable. So my idea of love was shaped around being emotionally and mentally unavailable. And those were the type of experiences I attracted: limitation and lack. People, I associated love with being emotionally and mentally unavailable, which I didn't recognize, which, consciously, but only subconsciously. So I kind of went through life with that kind of mindset, being a very sensitive child, what some people may call an empath. I so easily pick up on other people's emotions. And so with that as my foundation, all I did throughout life was just create that same scenario, those same experiences over and over and over again. Get into a relationship, everything seems great, but because what I was used to was rejection, again from my hero, the mind pattern or the voices in, the voice in my head would say, you know what, something's not right here. Something's not going on. Not realizing that it was the voice of the past speaking into my present, which now shaped my reality. And so while there was nothing there, people who know how to manifest and understand the law of attraction know that what you put out there, you attract. So I put out there that something's not right, something, everything's too good to be true, and that's what showed up in my experience. However, in my ignorance, I go, see, I knew something was not right, not understanding that I created it by my thought patterns. And so just throughout my life, I realized that I was attracting the similar experience that I had with my mother, experiencing her being mentally and emotionally unavailable. And that's what I attracted throughout my life, not realizing that that's what was going on. So subconsciously, because love looked like for me the picture of what I grew up with. That's what I recognized as love as I went throughout my adult life. And I can almost look at every relationship from teenage years all the way up to that particular moment in time where I go, you know what? This is what this is what's been going on. And really it was a journey for me of awakening to love. That is why that is the name of my business. That is the foundation of everything I do. Because when I began to understand that I was greater than what I was experiencing, when I really truly understood what it meant to love myself, not just from an external standpoint of taking myself on trips or going to dinner by myself, but really connecting with that divine inner essence and being in relationship with that part of myself, that part that beats my body,
Mm-hmm.
that flows the blood in my vein, being connected to that part through things like visualization and meditation, spending quiet time with that inner part of me, that transformed my life. And it transformed how I looked at life from a relationship standpoint, from a standpoint of defining love differently, from just being able to from what success looked like, understanding that I already, I say it like this, what you want, you already are. You just need to tap into
Mm-hmm.
that. And so
Right. Oh,
that was big for me.
mhm. Okay. So thank you for sharing that intimate part of your life. I know that that can be difficult sometimes, just sharing that. And so I want to take a step back so that those who are listening who may be in similar situations can kind of get some sort of resolution of how you were able to overcome that and derive at the awakening to love and associating. So earlier you mentioned that, you grew up in poverty in a neighborhood that wasn't so cool, and there were different relationships throughout your childhood that you learned to develop and understand as you start to get older. And one of the things that kind of resonated with me was when you said that you often repeated the cycle of the relationships because that's basically what you knew and things of that nature. So,
Right.
starting with this point, how did you get out of that circle, or that, repetitive motion of thinking that relationships is just one way of doing something? What was that thing for you that kind of broke you out of that mold?
Well, really, it was first of all, it was being able to recognize that's what's going on, because I understand with my clients that not a lot of people recognize that what they identify as love is oftentimes for a woman what her relationship with her father was or lack of, with a man what his relationship with his mother was or lack of. More times than not, that is the foundation for those relationships. But it first began with bringing it to the surfacing, seeing what it was, but then understanding that that wasn't love. See, there are there's two truths about love. One is looked at as egoic wanting. It's desire. It's sometimes it's strong passion, which at times can be fear in disguise, as opposed to love in the sense of being accepting. Like if this person, not wanting this person to be any other way than how they are, just with the understanding that I don't have to, I don't have to subject myself to who I accept that this person is. So breaking free of that is understanding the power of choice, right? Now that I've brought this to the surface, I can choose to continue to look at relationships from that perspective, or I can redefine love and relationships from my own perspective. And I did that based on some of the spiritual traditions that I studied and read up on as it relates to love and defining it as just acceptance.
Okay, awesome. So the second question I have is for you to come out of a neighborhood of how you described it in your interview just now. What
Mhm.
was some maybe 3 things that you did that kept you from going down the wrong road or going into gangs or going into drugs and things of that nature despite, what was going on in the neighborhood? What was your mind frame around empowering yourself to overcome those obstacles?
My escape, and one of the things that I attribute to every great thing about my life is I was always a reader. Um, I talk about how my mother was, but my mother also insulated us a lot. She kept us like I spent probably up to the time that I left to go into the military at 19. I spent almost half of my life on punishment, so I really wasn't able to get outside and run around and get into a lot of the stuff that some of my friends got into. Matter of fact, when we moved, I think it was around 15. I came back to the old neighborhood in DC and realized almost every friend of mine had either been in jail or was dead. It was like
Oh, wow.
it was like I just missed it. It was like when
Mm.
we and so it was really my mother. It was fear-based, but it saved us because she was more wondering about something happening to us or us doing something or me doing something that's gonna get myself in trouble. Um, so that part of it was that, but also reading. Like I enjoyed reading more than I enjoyed anything. I have a picture. My father has a picture. I am on a playground on my big wheel reading a book. Like
You
that
actually had a big wheel?
I had a big wheel. It's funny
Are
how it
you
just came back to me.
you
Yeah,
don't you don't look old enough to have a big wheel. I'm telling you.
well, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. That is I appreciate that.
Oh,
But yeah, that
wow,
was
big
my
wheel.
joy. I lost myself in books.
Okay. So
Yes.
therefore, because of that, you had a different outlet and, of course, um, people who you probably met along the way that kind of helped you stay on the path, which is always a good thing.
Right.
Because I know when I grew up in DC, everybody on the block was your mom or your pop and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
of course, I had the big wheel. My sister had the cheetah. If you
I
remember
love
the
it.
cheetah big
Yep.
wheel,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
I remember having all those things, and definitely, it was a trying time. I can say for sure that back in those days, you did have gangs and you did have the traditional stuff, but it wasn't as prominent as it is in today. You
Right.
know, back then you probably would get into it if you're forced to, but a lot of
Mm.
times, you had your Mrs. Brooks and you had your Mrs. Whoever on the corner that was
Mhm.
like your mom or your grandma, or they like your godmom in theory, trying
Right.
to keep you from going in that direction. So for those who are listening, you got to find that person in your neighborhood that can be your mentor that can help you stay straight because sometimes you don't get it in the family. You don't get it with going to school, but a lot of times you get it when you are engaging with older people who in your neighborhood who can help be a mentor. So good for you on just sticking to the books and stuff like that. And so fast forward into today
Mhm.
as you start to come out of school and everything, so you decided that you're going to take this awakening and you're going to create something, or like you have this hypnotherapy and neuro
Mhm.
linguistic programming. I think I got it right this time. how
I
did you
it
how did you equate the two together and say, what, I think I'm going to go into hypnotherapy? Because if I do you go around like hypnotize
hypnotizing people.
people, right?
No, it's the most fascinating thing. It really is. But as I began to tap into the God force within and really understanding what it meant to to love yourself. I understood that. And also, also a passion of mine is studying quantum physics and neuroscience. And so I
Mm.
understand as I was trying to figure out, because reading books, you search for knowledge, you search for, as I was trying to figure out how to write the course of my life, you know, I started saying, okay, I want to know how the brain works. I want to know what takes place that develops habits to the point that they are created or they can be broken. And and so that journey took me deeper into the workings of the subconscious mind and how that is where a lot of what we do on a day-to-day basis, 90%, yeah, I think it's like once you're at age 33, somewhere around there, almost 95% of the things we do is based on the subconscious. Things we don't even not even paying attention to, we just automatically do them. You wash yourself the same way, you fold your arms the same way, you put on your clothes the same way. You don't even recognize you're doing it, but it's a part of your programming. It's a part of your conditioning. I wanted to know how could I break the conditioning, break the limiting lack conditioning that I had grew up with and grown into more fully in my life, and really begin to create new habits. And so that took me into hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is really about creating new brain, because what takes place in the brain is you have neural pathways, and those neural pathways are strengthened with your programming. In other words, your programming is locked in place to a certain degree because you're doing the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to know how to break that. And hypnotherapy is one of the best ways to begin to break that, because what I would have my clients do is I would have them imagine a better them. What does that person look like? How's that person standing? How does that person talk? And so I get them to get into the feeling and the experience of what the best version of themselves looks like. And then I have them place themselves in that experience. And I go, now look at how, you were in maybe a disempowering experience before. Now go into that experience with how you see yourself now. What would you do differently? How would you speak different? And you can almost see people's body language change. You see their facial expressions change. You see a confidence come over them. And again, if you're doing this over a longer period of time consistently, you become that person. You imagine yourself as that person. You visualize everything about that. You step into it. If you do that consistently enough, you become that person, because
Mm.
now you have broken up some of the neural pathways that said that you only should see life this way, to now you're creating new neural pathways that allow you to see life differently. Now, neuro linguistic programming is
Mhm.
also along that same line. It's really about the language that we speak to ourselves. Neural meaning brain, linguistic meaning the language. Programming is still about that reprogramming yourself by how you talk to yourself. It's what is your body language saying? Because if you understand that, I think it's like 70 something percent of your language is body language, not speech, not anything else, then you understand that I can change my state from depression to joy in a moment if I know what to speak to my brain, if I know what to speak to
Wow.
myself. And it
Mhm.
happens like that. And for some of the listeners, you may know people like Tony Robbins, who does this, and there's some other people that you may catch on YouTube who are who are great at this. They can take you from one state to another state in a moment. And and what I tell people is this: when you think a thought, like if you think of the pressing thought, what that does is that releases a chemical into your body, so that now you're at the point where you're feeling the way you were thinking. And then through the course of feeling the way you were thinking, your body sends a signal to the spinal cord, to your brain, to give me more thoughts consistent with that. And so that's how you can be upset with your partner about something that took place in that moment. And now you're thinking about every single thing that they did. Everything just comes into your
Oh,
mind at that
wow.
moment about what that did. That's
You
because you're
scientifically broke this down to
yeah,
a lot of people,
yes.
and Imma tell you, I think for this podcast platform, everyone, no matter what industry or business they're in, they're always looking to find their purpose and feel fulfilled. And you pretty
Mhm.
much are telling people without even, and I hope you're not like hypnotizing us right
No,
now with all this, right? But at the same time, if people really just hear that and it goes right to a simple statement that you're speaking it into existence,
yeah.
you're speaking and believing it in existence. So if you really believe that this thing is going to happen or you want to be this type of person, you can definitely speak into existence and you can be the person that you're trying to be, or you can get the job you're trying to get, or you can start the business you're trying to start. I just think that everybody should really just hear what you're saying and just
Mhm.
rewind this thing,
Mhm.
let them know, hey, we're not hypnotizing you, we're just
No,
saying.
no, no.
Which I think is very interesting how you really broke that down, because no, I don't think people realize that that's what's happening internally with your brain when you are doing that.
Absolutely. Right, right,
Wow.
right, right.
There's
And
another gentleman that was on the podcast that spoke to the subconscious mind as well. His approach was a little bit different. Um,
mhm,
he had sort of like the same type of theory in terms of
mhm,
how you empower yourself,
mhm.
and definitely talking about it from a subconscious level,
Yeah.
which I thought was very, very interesting. And there was also another young lady who uses hypnotherapy for her coaching sessions as well.
Mhm,
She's
mhm.
also in the 2017 podcast, and her approach is slightly different as well. So I'm glad to see that there is more, life coaches that are using, different unique taboo type of practices to
Right.
get people to feel like that they are empowered or
Absolutely.
and worthy of loving themselves, because a lot of people for whatever reason think they're not worthy of being loved or feel love within themselves.
Right.
Why
Right.
do you think that is? Why do you think that there's such a huge thing going on where people feel like they have to find their purpose and be empowered?
I think because we all know innately that we were created for more than what we're experiencing. And I think we also know that there is inherently, though we can never put our finger on it at times, inherently something more powerful in us that we can have. The very fact that you think that you can do more than what you're doing, that you can have more than what you're doing, that you can be more than what you're doing, lets you know that it's available to you. It's just how do I get there? And so I think people's journey is on discovering how I get there. And so they're searching the YouTube, they're searching these podcasts, they're searching Google and Facebook and trying to find who has the message that can be able to take me from where I am to where I want to be.
Thank you. And I think
Absolutely.
that those are good points that you shared as well. And so I want to also talk now about awakening to love itself.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's talk about exactly, what is it that you provide and what impacts have you made since you started your company, Awakening to Love?
Yes, I am. I love what I have become as a result of finding myself because when you truly love yourself, it's funny. It almost simultaneously works with knowing yourself. Because when you know yourself, you love yourself. When you love yourself, you know yourself. And so awakening to love has helped me come to the conclusion and that there are two things that we're reaching for as human beings. Everything that we want to experience, everything that we want to do, everything we want to be translates back to being able to have love in our life. Be loved. We feel like if we become more, if we go down the layers of what the foundation of that really motivation for that really is, it's to be loved. It's to be loved. And the other flip side of that is we don't want to be afraid anymore. So there's essentially two things that are working in the earth that we're trying to reach for or run from: fear and love. And so what awakening to love really is, it helps me break down to people that when they show up with an issue saying they want to lose weight, or I want to I want to write my own book, or I want to do this, we're going to move them in the direction that they want to go, but we really want them to see what the underlying motivation is. In other words, that's why I talk about pulling back the veil, because oftentimes what people think their issue is really isn't their issue. be in a relationship with someone and go, look what this person did to me, look what that person did to me, playing the victim and so forth and so on. But really, the truth is, look at what you're doing to yourself. So once you can
Mm.
help people begin to pull back, because I tell people all the time, what you are, thank God for every single thing that has shown up in your life, whether you judge it good or bad, because I tell people that everything that shows up in your life shows up to show you your relationship with you. It's not
You
the
know what? That's interesting you say that everything you do that shows up is showing about you. And I don't think a
yes.
lot of people realize that. Say it again.
Everything that shows up in your life, whether you judge it as good or bad, has come for the purpose of showing you your relationship with you.
Wow.
So
That's
everything,
powerful.
it
That's
it really
powerful.
it really is. So everything we rail against, and I tell people all the time, don't lose the message in the details, because when you recognize that everything does show up for you, for you, not against you, not to take you out, not to diminish you in any way, but this has shown me this experience, whether it's a relationship experience, job experience, whether I'm not making enough money in my business, whatever, it has shown up to show you your relation. Am I loving myself enough? Am I putting myself first? Am I, because there's a New Testament scripture that says, love your neighbor as yourself. And oftentimes we want to, I get so many clients who want to give so much to other people and put themselves last. Well, how can you put yourself last when you're supposed to come first? You give to other people out of the overflow. So that abusive relationship that you may be in, it has come to show you, to drive you to a place where you begin to put yourself first, where you say, I am important. And for women especially, you see these movements take place where all of a sudden someone who was once abused has an organization for battered women or things of that sort. That experience, and though you never advocate for violence or mental or emotional abuse in any kind of way, it still serves a purpose of awakening you to your true power, awakening you to your true
Mhm.
worth. Because if you had had it in that relationship would have never even been an option for you. But because
Mhm.
of a lack of love that we often have for ourselves,
Yeah.
these experiences show up to show us our relationship with ourselves or lack thereof.
Wow. That's powerful. I don't think you could put it any better than that. Of how you're awakening the love in yourself by just recognizing that all the experiences that you go through is not only to make you aware of how you are putting yourself first, but also
Mhm,
how you're loving yourself enough to accept the changes and accept the mistakes and try to change or either fix what the mistakes are. Because
mhm,
a lot of times we make mistakes and we don't accept the mistake, and then we start thinking other negative things.
mhm,
What
mhm,
I try to do when I make a mistake is, okay, I made a mistake. I'm going to be feeling a little disappointed, but how can I make it better the next go around? Or how can I fix what I did wrong and be able to empower myself or my skills or my abilities? Everybody doesn't feel that way. That's just the way I kind of feel. And
right.
that's how I kind of learned to channel that energy, because what I used to do before was I used to just have negative, negative, negative all the time. Oh my goodness, I did something bad.
Mhm,
And then I'll
mhm.
just sit and stew on it for a long time. And just like you said earlier, it becomes that habit. And they
Yep,
say that
yep,
once you do it 21 or more times, it becomes a habit that you do on a routine basis.
right.
So what I try to do is I try to learn from my mistakes and figure out how can I empower myself to make this better so that when I come across this again, I know what I'm looking for, I know what I'm doing, and that's like an investment in myself. So I'm
Yes.
investing in bettering myself and being more aware. So I really, really love that. So let's talk about this book. Let's talk about this book. Tell
Yeah.
everybody what is the name of this book that goes along with everything that you're doing right now and how you came up with the concept.
It's called Relationship Chronicles: The Truth About the Stories We Tell Ourselves. And again, it's about when people show up saying it's one thing, really showing them that it's usually something a lot deeper that they need to address. And it actually began as a Facebook Live. I was doing some Facebook Lives, I think it was 2 years ago. And it was like one night this all came to me, like the whole Facebook Live, and I just wrote it, wrote whatever I was hearing in my head down. And obviously it was part of it was really kind of what I was studying about love, because I'm always constantly studying about love and relationships. And so it just flowed out of me very, very easily. And I'm a mastermind group leader, and my mastermind group, we did something where we gave presentations on what we do, and I did my presentation on the book, and my mastermind group were they were just astonished by it. And they were like, "You need to draw this out more. You need to bring this out more." So what I did was I purposed to really sit down and kind of bring it out more, each chapter by chapter. And so I ended up releasing it. And this was last year when that took place. Ended up releasing it in November, and it became a Amazon bestseller within less than a month. And it's really about, again, redefining relationships, according to what works for you. In other words, you know, I, some of it is controversial, but but I don't think there's a person who will not be able to see some truth in it, because I believe that some relationships have an expiration date. And while I do not advocate for things like divorce or things like that, I believe that what we call divorce at times is just a relationship reaching its expiration date. Now, every relationship, as I said, comes to show you your relationship with you. So as I learned through this relationship, some of the things that I did not know about myself or about my relationship with myself, once that clicks with me, then I'm at a crossroads of, has this relationship served its course, or do I now move on to another level of being able to track a different types of experiences and people into my life? I always tell people to look for someone who is also willing to grow and evolve. Because if you have purpose in your life that you're going to continually grow and evolve, and you're with somebody who just makes you feel good, or someone who, like for me, kind of when I recognized that I saw love this way based on what I experienced growing up that wasn't really love, then once I understood that, then I recognized that me and my child's mother, we couldn't stay together because I attracted her with a different mind. I call that again the false James. Now that I walk in my true self, my authentic self, that doesn't mesh with, and while we have a great relationship, that doesn't necessarily mesh with the person who attracted her before. So I tell people that sometimes relationships have an expiration date, and so you got to recognize that, okay, this relationship has reached this season. It's reached this season, and
Mhm.
now it's time for me to evolve, continue to evolve, and so forth. Because
Right.
I and some people are comfortable where they are, and if you're comfortable where if you're with a partner who's comfortable where they are, and if you're committed to growth and evolution, then that's just going to pull you further and further apart, um, and create more and more conflict.
Mhm.
At the same time, I talk about how conflict at the same time isn't a bad thing in relationships. Like, it isn't the end all to be all, because conflict in relationships give you a choice to either evolve to your highest self, or to connect with your lower nature. And what I mean by that is, if my partner does something that I don't like, I have a choice in that moment that I could either choose love or I can choose fear. Fear will respond to that person in kind. Love will go, you know what? That's just who this person is. I have to accept who this person is. But now I also have another choice to make. Do I want to continue to live my life with with these type of experiences, or do I want to continue my evolution to where I'm experiencing something different? And I hope that makes sense to everyone.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think it does. I think it does that, I do agree that relationships, and I like the fact that you said that it has an expiration date, and that's what I
hmm
kind of agree with. I do
hmm
want to add another caveat too in terms of growth and evolution, because I think in some way, form or fashion, people are changing, whether they change slowly or some people change fast. I think for me, and my husband specifically, I'm very transparent on this show. We've been together come 20 years.
awesome.
You know, we've been together 25, but we've been married 20 years. And one of the things that we definitely recognize in our marriage is that we're always talking about how we are changing as we grow
Mm,
older,
mhm.
how we are changing in our perspectives, in how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves with each other, and how we always go back to when we first met and who we were.
Mhm.
That's like one of our little conversations we have on a weekly basis, is that we're always reminding each other at the end of the week, what was it in our past that brought us together, and what is still the same and what is different.
Right.
Because just like, we both look at, he's an individual, he has his own way of thinking and feeling, and I'm an individual, and we're trying to come together and have a cohesive relationship. But
Mhm.
with the communication that we built and the trust that we built together, it allows us to be free to share those intimate thoughts and feelings. A
Right.
lot of times, you have marriages. I was married before. There wasn't no intimate thought or feeling prior to in my first marriage. It was more like one person speaking and the other person is not. And then you had one person evolving and the other person evolving a different way. And
Mhm.
it just, like you said, it just expired and it was time for both of us to move on. But
Right.
I do believe that if two people really love each other and recognize where they are in a relationship, to definitely communicate and say, hey, I have changed in the last couple of years, and I want to tell you how I changed a little bit, how I see things, and
Mhm.
then allow the other person to reciprocate and not get offended because they are saying whatever it is that their truth is. And if you stay to the truth of who you are, then the two people will be able to find a common ground and stay married. And I'm speaking from someone who's been married for 20 years.
Mhm.
So I don't know how people who are in new relationships see themselves, but this is how I'm sort of sharing that tidbit, because there are a lot of people out there now that is really looking to keep families together now. There's a new um, movement,
Mhm.
in trying to reestablish an actual family. Because if you really think about the last few generations, right? So the
Mhm.
generations that we sort of grew up, there was always somebody who was married 40, 50, 60 years,
Right.
right? And then you had this big gap for like 20, 25 years where there's a lot of single families out there, single dads, single moms, all that kind of stuff. And I see now in the last few years that there's this movement to keep families together,
Mhm.
through either marriage coaching or what you're doing, or, some communication. There's also an organization out there who I met recently that is primarily focused on keeping marriages together or keeping families together.
Mhm.
And so I would like to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing and all of those other organizations, because it inspires me, and it brings me back to the day when my grandparents was married 50 something odd years
Right. Right.
before my grandfather passed away. And I want people to have those long lasting like relationships. And of course, you're going to have the short ones, definitely, for
Mhm.
sure, but
Mhm.
learn from them, learn from it, and empower. And that makes me wanna go get your book. So, and I hope everybody who's listening go download this book, because I need some self hypnotherapy by
Right.
reading your book.
Right. Right.
And so
Right.
I want everybody to click on the button and just go ahead and just buy the book, because a lot of times we don't know what we don't know what we don't know until you actually pick up a book and read and get educated and things of that nature. So,
Mhm.
James,
Yes.
what events are you going to be in the next few months that people can come out and hear you speak or buy your book in person?
Whew. I am all over the place. I'm actually. I'll say this: the best, because I'm in Texas. I'm in Vegas. I'm in a few places coming up here. But I will say that the best place to reach me is I have my own telesummit coming up with 5 powerful speakers. It's online. It's on. We're gonna do it over Zoom, and the way you can see the event. I created a Facebook event under my group, Manifesting Love, Wholeness, and Life with James Valentine. That's one centralized place where you can get me. And the name of the summit is the Manifesting Your Destiny Telesummit with four more of my
Mm,
powerful friends.
wow.
But
Okay.
yeah, but I'm other other than that, I'm really all over the place. West Coast, Midwest. But I also will have my calendar. I need to put my calendar in my group. But yeah, I'm all over the place. I really am. I got to look at my calendar and see where well, I know I'm in Texas next. I just don't know whether
Well,
I'm in
you know
Houston or
what?
Dallas.
They're gonna have to just go to your website and just
Yes.
find out all about all the places that you're gonna be, because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be exciting. So
Yes.
give everybody your well, matter of fact, before I give that information out, why
Mhm.
don't you answer this one last question? And I'm pretty
Sure.
sure you're gonna be, hey, is she trying to hypnotize me? No, I'm just gonna ask
Right.
this one question.
Right.
What do you need personally and professionally to keep doing what you're doing and thriving? What do you need?
Always always talk about begins with self. You've heard that theme throughout this. So personally, it's I just need to continue to believe in James and what I have to offer. Externally, it's people who will. I always tell this: let me make you a believer, because I talk about how quickly and how easily you can manifest the life that you want. Let me make you a believer. So just support from people who are willing just to suspend doubt. Maybe I don't really know who James is, but let me just see what he's about. Um, just people who are willing to show up and see.
All right, guys, you got to show up. You got to show up. So what I want you to do, because I want everybody to really like seriously check out James Valentine. Click on
Mhm.
his page and see where he's going to be if he's in your city. As he
Yes.
already said, he's going to be in Las Vegas and some other places and
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. I'm not even going to try to repeat it because he said he's going to be in so many places,
It's a
right?
lot. It's a
So
lot.
so I want you guys to click on his page and definitely go to where his book is being sold and check it out. You can't lose anything. And even if this is not something that's for you, share, like, and vote. And I want to remind everybody to please share, like, and vote, because we have 7 awards coming up, and
Mm,
James could be one of them. And you want to make sure that you vote for your favorite for one of 7 BMWOC awards coming up this year. And also, we do have 3 whole years of podcasts. So if you want to check out some of the podcast interviews that I spoke about earlier, make sure you go to the 28 and the 2017 and the 2016 and check out everybody who has participated, because you never know, the information that you find there may be the piece of information that you're going to need to help elevate what you're trying to do. And so, James, I want to thank you for being a corporate sponsor and being on the podcast and having fun with me in this interview
absolutely.
today. I think I
Absolutely.
am totally converted through hypnotism. I can't even say the word. I just tried to say it like 4 times, right?
Right.
I think I've been hypnotized, that I know that I have to go and get this book. And I am just so excited. And I had so much fun speaking with you today. And thank you so very much.